Last week, I sat down on this channel and told you guys the story of how my 36th birthday was ruined when all of the party guests canceled on me an hour before we were due to go to the Retro 80s nightclub. This week's story paints the human race in about as reprehensible a light, but it only involves one person. It's the story of how my entire marriage was ruined with one simple sentence. I'm Linda. This is Linda's World, and I am wearing my Thank You Next hat on purpose today because it's Storytime with Linda, episode 2, and it starts right now. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that absolutely no marriage can possibly end with one simple sentence, and there must be a good deal more to the story than that. And you know what? You're right. It's just that you're about to hear the tale of the straw that broke the camel's back, I guess. Before you do, I would like to say that if you're just finding this video by accident online and you're not yet a member of Linda's World, well, why don't you go ahead and subscribe down below. And while you're there, hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos like this. Storytime in Linda's World is just kicking off, and you don't live 43 years on planet Earth without a lot of really interesting stories. So why don't we hear this one? Now, just for a little bit of background, let me tell you about my marriage and why it was just a tad bit unorthodox. Now, my ex-husband and I met on eHarmony. We met in October of 2010. That's when we had our first date. And it's funny because the day that we had our first date, I had a nail appointment with my mother. And I was looking for a new color to like darken up because it was fall. And I was looking at like the row of like Essie polishes, you know, and I stumbled upon one, turned it over to see the title, and it was called Soulmate. So of course I ran to my mother. I was like, look, LOL, soulmate, I have a date tonight. And she was like, oh, that's awesome. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Like, put that on. It'll bring you good luck. So I did. And I still use that color to this day, but soulmate, I don't think so. So the last time I laid eyes on my husband in like physical flesh was the Christmas season of 2017 outside of the San Jose airport in California. And our story actually does not take place much further away than that. Our story begins on September 11th, 2017, when my father died. I have an entire video, an actually really primitive video in Linda's World where before like I knew how to edit and I just put it up and it's like dark and stupid looking. But it is a really in-depth story about the relationship I had with my dad and the circumstances surrounding his life and death and how I feel about it to this day. So at the time, my husband was in the process of moving to Northern California. I should say, for the record, that we never lived together. And the reason we never lived together was largely due to my own choice. You see, what happened was when we met, I had Sophia the dog, and she at the time was 8 and very stuck in her ways. I also do not have a car and do not have a driver's license. And here I live in Brooklyn, and I'm a teacher. I've had the same job for 20 years. So I guess back then it would have been less than that. It was 10 years. And so I wasn't about to uproot myself and move to Long Island, which is where he lived at the time, because I was not going to be able to get to work. And people were like, well, teach out there. I said, you don't understand. It doesn't go like that. You don't just transfer. Anybody who's a teacher out there knows you don't just switch school districts and expect miracles to happen and your pension to go with you and whatever. But I want to adjust you just a tad. And so in any case, I did not. And at the same time, he lived alone in his house with his 2 senior cats. And so I was like, well, the animals wouldn't mingle well together because Sophia was like really loud and brash, sort of like a mother. Greetings from the future. This is Editing Linda, and I just wanted to say, in addition to the fact that, damn, that's a lot of eyeshadow I put on today, I neglected to mention the fact that I don't choose to live with another human being. I really wouldn't share my household with anyone that isn't a dog at this point. I lived with my family for 24 years, and when I finally closed the door to my own apartment, I vowed that I would never open it up to another living soul again, and if that makes me callous, I wear the badge. Back to the video. And so he's self-employed, he lives in his house and works in his house, so like the whole thing just didn't go, you know? And so I said I'd be more than happy to do what we've been doing, even when we got married, which was in 2013, which is to continue to go get on the Long Island Railroad every single Saturday night of my life, once in a while on Friday, and spend Saturday into Sunday at the house, and then come home Sunday afternoon and do my life, and you know, so so we existed in that manner for many years. Now, the thing was that I always, and I should say that like when people say how long were you married, I always kind of say 7 years, even though we were only married for 4, because we Like, we didn't change anything. Like, our relationship existed in those 7 years exactly the same, and the only thing that changed was the piece of paper that said we were legally married. We got married at City Hall. We didn't have a big wedding. It didn't feel like anything had changed, you know? So, nevertheless, we find ourselves in 2017 now. So, with my father dead and my ex-husband, or husband at the time, of course, moving to Northern California, it was an interesting place in life where there were a lot of things wrong. I mean, first of all, obviously there was the grief I was experiencing because I didn't expect such a thing to happen. My father had been in great health, or so we thought, a year before. And my little dog, Sophia, had been dead 2 years, and people give me grief, and I say this, like, with all due respect, you don't know. You know, you didn't know, like, everyone in the world has lost a dog. I'm the only Linda that has ever lost a Sophia. And I imagine that people can respect that concept. So I wasn't exactly feeling that, you know, and I had Chloe already. Chloe's beautiful, and I love my little baby Chloe and everything, but yet I wasn't in a good place. Work was actually starting to get scary. Like, it had never been pleasant, but with the way that my supervisor and I see eye to eye or don't see eye to eye, things were really, really hairy. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I had a bad day at work. Like, I was frightened for my career. And I kind of still am. So it's to the point where I have to recite mantras and positive Ariana Grande lyrics just to walk into the building and not have like a grand mal panic attack every single day because of this situation. And he knew all of that. Okay. At the same time, my mother, grieving the man she'd been married to for 42 years, needed her BFF, me. And we spent many hours on the phone talking over, like, everything as complicated as grief to as uncomplicated as paper towels, just to be there for each other and be each other's buddy, which I wouldn't take back to this day. My mother is my best friend. So, like, you know, I had a plate full of things, you know, some positive, some negative, but I have a very large, complicated life. And he knew all of this. So I'd like to flash forward to the meat of the story, the reason why you clicked on this video, and it's the one simple sentence. So, November, he'd bought a house in Northern California. It was such to be that I was to go out every month or so by plane and just, you know, soak up Northern California. And anybody who knows me knows how I feel about California. I'm a Southern California enthusiast, but beggars can't be choosers. And so, nevertheless, that was what was supposed to happen. So we were in the process of, like, he was like, I'm gonna go get some boxes, and, you know, it's like when you move, it's like a lot of conversations about, like, real estate and FedEx, you know what I mean? And so we're all, like, caught up in that. And his daughter was over. He has a teenage daughter. And we're all leaving. I had been taking the 2:24 train out of Long Beach back to Brooklyn every single Sunday for 7 years. So it was like an occurrence. This happened every Sunday, right? So we're all packing up to leave. We're putting on coats and whatever. And we're just like leaving the house. They were going to go do something. I was going to go get on the train, and life was to continue, you know? So I'm packing my shit and putting on my coat and whatever, and so's he. And we're just having a conversation, all three of us, very simply, about how it's Monday tomorrow and, like, ew, like Sunday, you know? Like, just like, you know, weekend's over, bleh, you know, just a normal thing. And that's when I heard it. I was putting on my coat, standing next to the couch in the living room. He was standing near the doorway in the kitchen where we were to exit the house. And he said, and I quote, "What you could possibly have to complain about is beyond me." No, I don't have anything to complain about. No, you're absolutely right. I have a marvelous life. I have a beautiful career. I have money in the bank. I have people who respect and admire me. I have my parents alive and together. I have Sophia waiting at home for me. I am not going to have to recite mantras and wake up half an hour before schedule to be physically sick just to walk into my job tomorrow. I have not just recently lost my father. I have not just, I don't have bipolar disorder. I don't have seasonal affective disorder. I do not, do you see what I imagine I don't have to give you the list because, you know, I've explained myself in many videos before. And I imagine at this point, you, even a casual viewer, kind of knows what I'm up against in life, even more so than the person who is supposed to be my life partner. So, like, therefore, I can imagine you would understand why that sentence was bad. So he didn't know that he had done anything wrong, and I don't know that he still, to this day, would even remember this conversation if I told him about it. Not that I'm in contact with him. It's just, I'm just saying, if I randomly called him up out of the blue and said, hey man, guess what? One Sunday you said this, like, I'm not going to do that, and I imagine he wouldn't remember it if I tried. So it's not even about that. But the reason I'm telling this story is to let you know the following. Sometimes something can fester for a really, really, really long time. I mean, I imagine this can happen with positive things, but I kind of have experience in the negative only. And so where like a situation is allowed to go on. I imagine that all of us have been through English class and known the poem, A Dream Deferred by Langston Hughes. Maybe not. I'm an English teacher. I just assume everyone knows this stuff. So if you don't, A Dream Deferred, which is closely related to the play Raisin in the Sun, explains what happened to a dream deferred. Does it fester like a sore and then run, and so on? And it asks, like, and it makes, similes comparing if you put off your dreams or whatever. And it says, does it fester like a sore and then run? And lastly, it says, the last lines of the poem say, maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? And Langston Hughes is my favorite poet. And my favorite poem is Still I Rise by Maya Angelou, but that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to bring up that poem because it's absolutely right. Sometimes something just sags like a heavy load and festers like a sore and dries up like a raisin in the sun, and all of the similes that this, brilliant man said, but also eventually they explode. And everyone always thinks of things as being very grandiose because that's what we see. We turn on a soap opera and people are slapping each other and pulling, pushing each other downstairs and saying, how dare you be sleeping with my twin brother? I didn't know it was him. And, everything seems so dramatic when you watch it. A reality show, people are like in the confessional, like crying their mascara off, being like, why did she talk to him? She knew that I didn't like that guy. And everyone's like getting all hysterical all the time. And so because we watch a lot of TV and a lot of YouTube and whatever, like, myself included, we assume that things are supposed to be that way, that like breakups are supposed to look like General Hospital or something like that. And they don't. Many things that are supposed to be very hysterical don't. You see people hysterical in hospital hallways sinking to their knees when the news of a loved one's death appears. That's Dallas, that's, that's Knots Landing. I'm dating myself with my TV references here. So, like, that's not what happens. Sometimes a simple thing, just a simple effing thing gets said or gets done. My best friend told me that she understands exactly what I'm talking about because her marriage ended with the use of the word no. One day she woke up and she asked him, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And he said no. And that was it, And as I said at the beginning of this video, nothing changes like that. It's not just that the person said no or in my case, what you could have to complain about is beyond me. It's not like that. It's not like you called me ugly and I suddenly decided not to talk to you. It's, nothing is that black and white, even though I happen to be wearing black and white today. But I'm wearing this gray sweater to show you that it's not all black and white. There are many shades of gray, like, of course I could have just sucked it up and gotten on the train and said whatever, and I did, because I had for 7 years. I had gotten on that train after so many other sentences that I'm not at liberty to put on here because first of all, it's not the video, and second of all, I don't want to open a can of worms in my own brain today. I'm trying to be happy. It's sunny outside. And so I could tell you all of that stuff, but that's not the point. The point is that the person who stood up in a court of law, and said, I will be with you till the end of time because this book says so. I will, in sickness and in health, and the vows, how they go, that he chose to rewrite those vows and for 7 straight years make them so incredibly conditional. And conditions to which a person could never uphold, by the way. There was no, it wasn't that I failed. Anybody would fail under that paradigm. And And to be so incredibly blind to another person's suffering, and so incredibly blind to the turmoil that the person who's supposed to be the person closest to you is currently experiencing and will continue to experience and has experienced, to poo-poo it, to put it off, to put it aside, to dream defer it. He didn't run me over with a car. He didn't cheat on me with like the babysitter. He didn't lock me in the closet and set it on fire. He didn't do anything horrific like that. I'm telling you right now, he did not. But he said that. And it was at that moment that I knew, like straight up, I knew I could not continue to be a member of this group. I don't say I can't continue to be in this relationship, because that sounds so, it sounds so played out, and it also wasn't even a relationship at this point. It was, a relationship exists between two people who agree upon a set of terms. I didn't get to have any terms, and so I don't call it a relationship. I say I will no longer be associated with this group. And about 6 weeks later, I disassociated myself with that group. And I came home from my trip to California, which could be a story time in itself, of course. And before I even took off my coat, because it was December, before I even said hello to Chloe the dog, before I even unzipped my suitcase, I took my rings off and I put them in a little seashell bowl that I have in my bedroom drawer. And there they stayed. And that's the best decision I ever made in my life. Other than, of course, deciding to be the mother of dogs. That's the actual best decision I ever made in my life. I made that decision twice already, and I will continue to, because that's my family. That's the unconditional love that I've been looking for. They don't care if I have a bad day. They love me anyway. They don't give me conditions. They don't sit next to me and say, well, Mom, give me dinner now, because what you could possibly have to do else is beyond me. They don't say that. And that's why I love them. And that's why I'm single. And that's why I'm wearing my Thank You Next hat. And I hope that you've gleaned something from this story. And ladies, if you are in your 20s, you get better recognizing this as time goes on. If you're above your 20s, if you're in a group like mine, isn't it wonderful that we could recognize these things a little bit quicker? I was a little late to the party. I don't know that this should have been a 7-year lapse in my life, but it doesn't matter that I didn't know immediately. I knew then. I knew that day in November. I knew when he said, what you could possibly have to complain about is beyond me, that I was not supposed to be in that group anymore. And it's been almost 3 years since I've been excommunicated from that group, and I'm good with that. I put on my Thank You Next hat today to make this video. I have to go now because I'm due to do some chores, and I'm gonna put on my mask and glasses and go outside. But I just wanted to share this with you. Story Times with Linda is just kicking off, and I hope you'll stick around and hear more. See ya.